So today I've done a lot of editing on a video that talks about data breaches that have been committed by Northumbria NHS Trust against my son and myself. After going away from the video, I realized I did want to talk a little bit more about court proceedings. So there was a judicial review, which I'm not supposed to talk about. It's actually illegal for me to do so. Um, One of the things that happens is that the courts will find in favor of the institutions, and they can then put reporting restrictions on the whole thing. And I don't think that it's to protect the vulnerable. I think quite often it's to protect the government. That's one thing I wanted to say. As I was starting my PhD and starting to wade through all this crap with the Northumbria NHS, a news story caught my attention about a young woman named Zoe. Her story hit me. So it was a young woman who had autism. Things were written in her medical records that were not true, things that were ugly, different things from what were written about my son, different things from what was written about me. But the message being she's dysregulated and creating drama is what was basically being said about me. And when I found Helen Boyer's email, the one she did not send to me, the one she wrote about me, and read what she wrote, I've talked in my last video about the slime, that horrible, terrible, cold slime, that sickening, painful feeling. And I said, maybe it's better if I'm just not here. And I didn't expound on what I meant by that. And maybe some people understood. But what I meant by that is I thought about taking my life. And I'm not saying that to I'm not saying it to create drama. I'm saying it because that was what I thought. So I just thought, what is it that happens when somebody says who you are and you have no control over that? Why does that hurt so much? Does it hurt everybody that much? Or are some of us more vulnerable to that? But this is what Zoe talked about. Zoe took her life. It wasn't just somebody wrote wrong information, but they wrote opinions that were ugly and not, that was not professional. And professionals can use professional words in completely unprofessional ways. So one of the things that was written about Zoe was that she had borderline personality disorder, and that's a professional term. It's a clinical term. So first of all, she didn't. She was autistic. It was written by people who probably had bias about what autism is supposed to look like and didn't imagine how it could present with women, didn't imagine how being marginalized might affect somebody's mental health and how that might look like dysregulated emotions. I have opinions about why that might have been written. I think we get scared. We get scared, and it's right that we're scared because we get treated badly. We get talked about, and we're paranoid because it's happened. We've been hurt. So then we go and we're meeting with people and we come off as paranoid, scared, maybe angry, maybe sad, maybe having extreme feelings. And it becomes something broken within us rather than a response to crap that's been done. Zoe ended her life. And she's written, before she wrote tweets saying she didn't want to be here anymore. They stole her identity from her. When I read Helen Boyer's letter, my first thought was that I don't want to be here. I was so ashamed, so humiliated, and I didn't know how to escape. I mean, suicide is framed as a cowardly act. But if you're trapped, it's sometimes just an act of fuck you, I can leave. I had, and that happened a couple more times over the years to come. Judges telling me, you waited too long to bring a discrimination claim. And I don't think they got how hard it is to bring a discrimination claim. I felt stupid and ashamed. And there was anger from the judges. I'm not quite sure. Was the anger because I was a litigant in person? Was the anger to send a message, you better be quiet? Was the anger, did I not look like an autistic person is supposed to look? I don't know what the anger was about. Was it about the amount of money I claimed or my American accent and I'm suing the NHS? I don't know what the anger was about, but there was anger. I'm told I owe £48,000 and I'm told I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I mean, I have evidence of everything I've said. I can evidence every single thing. I think the original falsifications about my son were mistakes. I then think the mistakes were clearly evidenced as wrong, and there was some hiding going on. People lied about how the mistakes came to be made. The doctor was hiding. A document was written about me that made me sound unstable. That document was then given to a doctor who no longer worked with my family, who then passed it to the GMC for the sole purpose of discrediting my complaint. I have evidence for everything I've said, and their actions also speak for themselves. It's felt like at times the Twilight Zone. I don't know who's old enough to remember the Twilight Zone. I remember a show where one episode where a guy was standing in the middle of a town yelling, "Is anybody out there?" And nobody heard him. And I felt like that a couple times. Like I have all this evidence. Reading her letter, I wanted to kill myself. And it didn't feel like it would have been an act of cowardice. It would have felt like I can leave. You cannot force me to participate in this farce. You just can't. So as human beings, we all get to make that choice. As I started reading more and more about Zoe, I really got it. I got it. I got why that was the door she went through. And when I was thinking about that myself, I thought, so if it's getting this bad that I'm thinking of going, and what if I didn't go? What if I existed with the pain? In a way, there's a liberation. They can't do anything worse than take your life from you. So I thought, fuck them. I'm going to fight. And I have done. And I've fought and I've lost and my hair has fallen out. And I have thought about Zoe throughout this all because I can understand why a young woman who was just in her early 20s did not make that decision. I wish she was here. I wish she was still here. She shouldn't be gone. She should not be gone. It's not right. No matter what I accomplish, no matter what societal shifts there are, it doesn't bring her back. And she's one person whose name I happen to know, but there are so many. It's not right. The court. It was a personal injury claim. I had a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. I now have two diagnoses. One is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So personal injury claims are not supposed to be a financial risk to the person who is injured. Unless my claim has no merit whatsoever. I basically would have to be lying about what's happened in order to be held responsible for the opponent's cost. That's how it should work. There's very specific rules about what that means. It means that if the judge disagrees with my argument, they can say, okay, you lose, but they cannot make me pay the defense's cost just because they disagree with my argument. It has to be totally without merit. So my case was thrown out. It was a discrimination claim and a data breach claim. Now, the discrimination claim was brought too late. that does not make it totally without merit because there is a deadline for bringing a discrimination claim. It's 6 months, but it can be extended. There is no obligation for me to apply in any way for an extension. It would be for there should have been a hearing basically about what were the reasons? Why did it take so long to bring this? There were a lot of reasons. It's really, I mean, but there's no hearing. The judge just said, nope, you're out of time. No hearing at all, totally without merit. Didn't rule on the data breach. The first judge, the judge who threw out my case, said that my discrimination case was out of time. And that was it. No statement, no judgment, no ruling about the data breach, which was like it was on the application for the case. This is a discrimination and a data breach claim. Only the discrimination got ruled on. So then I appeal. And the appeal judge acknowledges that actually, yes, the first judge, Judge Thomas, did not acknowledge the data breach, but we shouldn't criticize him because he's very busy. That's literally what was said. I've got the transcript. So Judge Friedman, right? Yeah. Judge Friedman, the judge hearing the appeal. So he's saying, yes, I can see this. The data breach claim basically didn't get ruled on. But let's not criticize Judge Thomas for that. I think the fact that I'm a litigant person really screwed me because I needed to clarify things around what was harassment and what was victimization. What am I calling harassment? And I remember thinking for me, victimization is a form of harassment. This is my way of thinking because harassment is defined as anything you don't want. And I don't want to be victimized. So therefore, victimization is a type of harassment. But yeah, that didn't go over so well in court. This is not my skill set. So that wasn't good. So yeah, there was never a hearing on whether or not I should be allowed to bring the discrimination claim past the deadline. I guess my argument was that basically discrimination was ongoing. and it was an appeal. So that was it. There was no appeal after that. So Judge one doesn't rule on everything. Judge two says, okay, yes, Judge one didn't rule on everything, but actually, no, we're still going to deny the appeal. The only thing that was really helpful in all of this was when he said that the stuff about Helen Boyer post-dated the claim. It did not. It can be read in my very first particulars, but when the judge says something in their judgment, that becomes the truth. So the defense effectively cannot argue that I brought this and that I've already brought this and had this thrown out. The defense can't argue that because I have a paper from the judge saying this has not been brought before. So this is the court system. The reason I was mentioning Zoe earlier, and also I think the reason I'm making this video now that I've made the first one is because when you hit rock bottom, the court stops having power over you. When you get to a certain point, the power that they have doesn't exist anymore. So I've lost. I've lost a lot. I have a county court judgment. I could be bankrupt. I could have everything I own taken from me and have my life turned even more upside down. I'm going to tell the truth because it's the only thing I have left to do. Telling the truth. That's it.